A footballer worth $250 million lives behind these walls. He could own any street on earth. Her mother remembers a different scene. Her son, one of the most famous men alive, driving alone in circles around the Paris ring road in an old Peugeot 206 just to remember what it felt like to move through the world unnoticed. She said, "He can't even walk down the street anymore. It makes me sad." So why, with all that money, all that freedom to go anywhere, does Kylian Mbappé keep choosing to live 2 minutes from his mother's front door?
As of the summer of 2026, Kylian Mbappe's net worth is estimated at around $250 million, billed from a Real Madrid contract, endorsement deals, and a growing investment portfolio, according to Athlon Sports. His fixed salary at the club runs close to 31 million euros a year gross per Capology's football finance tracking, making him the highest-paid player on the roster. He is chased by paparazzi across 2 countries. He has been offered and turned down contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars for a single season. When he needed a home in Madrid, he didn't disappear into isolation. He didn't flaunt it in the city center. He moved into La Finca, a private, heavily secured residential estate outside the capital, and paid roughly $11 million for a mansion once owned by Gareth Bale, according to Idealista. His mother, Fayza Lamari, the woman who also happens to be his agent, bought a home in that same development, close enough to walk to. For a man who could live anywhere, that's not a coincidence. That's a decision. He's made it more than once. The question is why a man with this much freedom keeps building his life around staying close. To understand that decision, you have to go back to where this family started. This was never his story alone. It was a family operation, built years before anyone knew his name. Kylian Mbappé grew up in Bondy, a working-class suburb northeast of Paris, in the Seine-Saint-Denis region, one of the country's poorest and most heavily policed areas. His father, Wilfred, a Cameroonian-born coach, worked for 25 years at the local club, AS Bondy, and put boots on his son at age 5. His mother, Fayza, a professional handball player for the French national team before she became a football executive. From the beginning, this was not a family that outsourced its son to the industry. While most rising football prospects get swallowed by agents, academies, and intermediaries who take a cut of everything, the Mbappés did the opposite. According to journalist Philippe Auclair's reporting in The Guardian, agents and advisors tried repeatedly to position themselves as gatekeepers to Kylian's career and were kept at arm's length from Bondy onward. The division of labor was explicit. His father managed the sporting pathway, his mother managed the money and the brand, and Kylian, even as a teenager, retained final say. That structure didn't loosen as the money got bigger, it tightened. By the time Mbappé was a global superstar, his inner circle looked almost nothing like a typical footballer's. Lawyer Delphine Verheyden, who wasn't even a football specialist when she joined in 2015, now manages his image rights and investments, and famously charges by the hour instead of taking a standard agent's commission. Publicist Patricia Goldman runs his media strategy, tax specialist Barbara Ozan oversees his financial architecture, and Fayza Lamari sits at the center of it all, eventually launching her own agency in 2022 to represent her sons. This wasn't only about avoiding predatory agents, it was also about surviving what fame did to him. Everything shifted after the 2018 World Cup. Mbappé was 19, France won. Almost overnight, the boy from Bondy became one of the most recognized faces on the planet. His mother has described watching him walk down the Champs-Élysées during the celebrations and feeling something close to alarm, like she was watching her son disappear into his own fame in real time. She's spoken about calling him Justin Bieber, only half joking, because his life jumped without warning from a modest street in Bondy to a 5-star hotel and a global spotlight. Even his own words point somewhere unexpected. After donating his entire World Cup salary, roughly €400,000, to a children's charity, he told Time magazine, "I did not need to be paid. I was there to defend the colors of the country." It's the kind of line that sounds like humility, but underneath it is something more specific, a young man trying to hold on to a version of himself that fame was pulling apart. Then came a harder chapter. In 2020, Swedish authorities opened an investigation involving an alleged sexual assault with Mbappe, a case that did not result in charges, but that his mother has since described as one of the most difficult periods the family endured. Combine that with a level of fame that made ordinary life, dating, walking to a shop, existing without an audience, and you start to see why keep the circle small stopped being a business philosophy and became something closer to a survival strategy. His mother has said he once told her, when asked about dating, that there wasn't a way to have a normal relationship inside this mess. Loneliness, scrutiny, and a legal scare layered on top of each other didn't push this family toward more distance and more delegation, it pushed them toward each other. That's the real reason, not privacy for its own sake, proximity as protection.
So, when Mbappe signed with Real Madrid in 2024 and needed a new home in a new country, the decision wasn't just about square footage or a golf green Gareth Bale happened to leave behind. It was about rebuilding the one structure that had kept him steady through a decade of this kind of pressure. His mother close, the circle small, the walls high enough to keep the noise out. That's why La Finca wasn't a random postcode. It's a gated development where facial recognition guards the entrances and pine trees block sightlines from the road. A place designed for the kind of privacy his mother once said he'd lost on the streets of Paris. And when Fayza Lamari bought her own home inside that same development, she wasn't relocating for convenience. She was rebuilding the physical proximity that had defined this family's approach to fame since Bondy. This is the same logic that shaped his inner circle of specialists instead of a conventional super agency. It's the same logic behind keeping his father on the sporting side and his mother on the business side, more than a decade after he stopped needing either of them to manage a schoolboy contract. Wealth, in Mbappe's world, didn't loosen the family's grip. It raised the stakes of losing control, so the grip tightened. The mansion in La Finca isn't a retreat from fame, it's armor built with it. And once you see that, the picture reorganizes itself. This isn't a wealthy young man clinging to his mother out of dependency. It's a family that watched fame nearly swallow him once, in 2018 and again during the Swedish investigation, and built a fortress, literally, the second time around. So when Mbappe signed with Real Madrid in 2024 and needed a new home in a new country, the decision wasn't just about square footage or a golf green Gareth Bale happened to leave behind. But there's a second layer to this, and it isn't just about safety. It's about what Mbappe's family believes money is for. In 2020, Mbappe founded a charitable foundation, inspired by KM, an idea The Guardian reports his mother conceived, designed to support 98 children from Paris as they pursue their ambitions in sport, education, and culture. It would have been easy, given his wealth, to give without limit. Mbappe had already shown as much when he gave away his 2018 World Cup salary without hesitation. But his mother, acting as his agent, drew a hard line, one that reveals something about how this family thinks about wealth. According to Le Parisien, she told him, "Below 30%, I don't do it. I'm retiring. I'm not working for you." That's not a rejection of generosity. His mother has been the architect of his giving from the start. It's something closer to a philosophy. Wealth exists to be used deliberately, for family, for a small number of causes chosen with intention, for structures built to last, not diffused endlessly or handed over to intermediaries who don't share the family's stake in the outcome. It's the same instinct that kept agents at arm's length in Bondy, the same instinct that put a tax specialist and a fee-based lawyer in place instead of a commission-hungry super agency. The same instinct that bought a house 2 minutes from his mother's door instead of a compound designed to advertise distance from anyone else. For the Mbappe family, freedom was never about having no limits. It was about deciding, deliberately, where the limits go and refusing to let outsiders draw those lines for them.
Maybe that's the real paradox worth sitting with. We tend to assume that once someone has enough money to do anything, they'll do everything. Buy the distance, buy the isolation, buy their way out of the family that raised them. Mbappe's story suggests something closer to the opposite. The more the world pulled at him, the more he and his mother built a life engineered to hold him in place. $250 million didn't buy him a life without limits. It bought him the ability to choose his own. So maybe the real flex isn't the mansion behind the gates of La Finca. Maybe it's the house 2 minutes away, the one that says, no matter how big this gets, some things don't get outsourced. What would you build close if you could afford to put distance between yourself and everyone else?